Welcome to People I Know Show, a podcast about interesting people, personal growth, and being wrong. I'm Kurt Karstensen. Joining me today is Natalia Cortes. I saw her during my trip to Northern California earlier this month. I had met Natalia for the first time last fall and learned of her worldly adventures and experiences. She's from the South American country of Colombia, but has lived in or spent significant time working and traveling in at least a dozen countries. In the conversation, we talk about some of the more shocking learning experiences that she's had around the world, as well as learning about where her passion for social innovation and human rights comes from. As a part of this episode, the Being Wrong segment is also available on video, which you can watch on the People I Know Show channel on YouTube. Be sure if you go there to subscribe to the channel to know when other videos appear. Also, be sure to subscribe anywhere that you might be listening to this podcast to get a reminder of when the newest episode is out, which has been consistently on Fridays. And while you're at it, please take a few moments to leave a rating or a review for the show, especially in Apple Podcasts or wherever else you might be listening. That is just one of the small things you can do to help me help the show grow. Also, follow People I Know Show on Facebook or Instagram, and you can interact with the posts there. That's another way to get a little more exposure to this little podcast called People I Know Show. Now, to my conversation with Natalia Cortes. Natalia Cortes joins me today in San Francisco, and we're at a park, and there's some kids in the background. Maybe those ambient sounds will come through here. Hi, Natalia.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So we have an abbreviated amount of time here as you have a very busy schedule, and we'll try to understand exactly your lifestyle a little bit, but you're in San Francisco. We're in San Francisco today, and I met you the last time I was here kind of randomly. You were organizing a pub crawl that I was on, and you're one of several people I met because of that, and I got a chance to see you while I was back in town today. But you're not from here. And you've been to many places in the last few years. Kind of explain your life's path in the last decade or so.
Sure. I'm from Colombia, from the capital, Bogota, but I lived some years abroad. I left home when I was 21 years old. I went to study in Europe. I lived in England and in France, in Italy. I work in Sweden in human rights, and I've been moving around for months. In Brazil, I stayed a couple of months in Pennsylvania, here in the States, and I also lived in the Middle East. I lived in Egypt and in Turkey.
You've listed so many places that even though I listened to you say them all, I've already probably forgotten a few. When you set out at age 21 to do what you were doing, did you anticipate it being like that with all these places that you will have lived at in that time, or what were you looking to do exactly when you left at 21?
I just wanted to study and experiment other places, other cultures, but the most I traveled, the most I lived abroad, I got addicted to new knowledge, new cultures, different things. I wanted to experiment different people, different things, different gastronomies, different landscapes.
Are there some that, as you look back now, are maybe the most shocking life experiences to you, having come from where you came from to going to all these places?
Yeah. In a positive or a negative way?
I think we can start with positive, and then we can consider negative.
Okay. So I lived in Sweden for a couple of months. I was working there. It was actually my internship. And I was working at the embassy of Colombia in human rights. And one of the things that shocked me the most was the society, the system, because I'm coming from a third world country, a developing country, where we have 7 social classes and people have a lot of hierarchies. But in Sweden, everyone is the same. And I was not used to that. It could sound a bit stupid that it was shocking for me that, but in Sweden, everyone is the same. And I have been always wanted to live in a place like that because I am coming from a country with a lot of inequalities. So I believe that everyone is the same. We are all the same and we have the right to have the same opportunities. And I saw that in Sweden. So that place, I really love that place.
And I guess I don't know enough about Sweden, but there's obviously a lot of socialism with the governmental practices that would make you feel like everyone's the same.
Yeah.
You have a very positive reaction to it, but what about it in particular, and why from your perspective, why would countries be like that, and maybe why shouldn't they?
Okay. So I talked to people that they were doing the university there, and people, when they start university, they have it completely for free, and the government help students to find apartment. They help them to find like the living place and to buy all the things they need to study. So the parents, they don't have to pay anything. They don't have to ask for loans. They just have it so easy. And in Latin America, you can study in a good university only if you can afford it, if your parents can pay for the university, because it's really difficult for us in Latin America to take loans because we don't have like a credit history. So for me, that was very shocking. That's one of the good things I saw, that everyone has the access to health and education, something that is not normal in Latin America. Something bad is that in these welfare countries is that people have it all. So they are not very creative, because in Latin America, we have to be creative. We have to find the way to survive, not because we are creative. It's not for the sake of being creative, it's because we have to. But in Sweden, people have everything, so sometimes it blocks their creativity.
Would you also say there's a correlation to people maybe being less ambitious or lazy, or just lacking creativity?
Yeah, less ambitious, because they have their life, they have their things together. They don't have to worry about anything. And for this reason, they are not looking forward anything. So they don't have dreams. And, you know, Sweden...
So you really, we talk to people, you don't get the sense that they had dreams or ambition.
Yeah, you know, according to the people I was hanging out with, because I wanted to hang out just with Swedish people when I was there, they were all very miserable, but they were having the best life that we want to have in Latin America. They were having an apartment in the center of Stockholm, and they were eating all the time outside, and they were having the best car, but they were miserable. They were sad, and I couldn't understand that. And I was very happy, you know, in Latin America, even though I faced a lot of things in my life and I work with the extreme poor communities, but in my communities, they are happier than Swedish people. And I was very shocked, because in my perception of life, they should be happy because they have all of this.
So this is strange. The way you're describing this is, you thought it was one of the best experiences, maybe one of the best places to live, because you come from a background where you don't want to see people that weren't born with money struggling. And in Sweden, people, if you have all these, the healthcare and the education is there for you, no matter what your wealth is. However, you seem to think that the quality of life experience overall goes down then for these people. That was your perception.
Yeah. I felt that as a Latin person in Sweden, I was too much of everything. I was too talkative, too expressive. There was a point that I was feeling bad because it was too much. Because people there, they don't express their feelings. They are very close, because they don't need people. They don't need to express anything. People became very individualist and not helpful, because they know that the system can always respond for the people. That's
interesting. I've never heard anyone give that perspective. And I think what's best about your opinion, how your opinion might weigh a little stronger than someone else's, is because you've been to so many countries now and lived in different countries. And we can get to some more on this and some of the other places that you've lived, and being an outsider, just trying to have opinion. Would you then say about a country like Sweden, you seem to like it so much. Would you not suggest other countries take some of the welfare approaches?
Yeah. This is the dream I have for my country. I dream that people have the same opportunities, that people, no matter the titles, education, or social background, they are all treated in the same way. Sweden was like that. Everyone was treated in the same way. Every kind of job is appreciated there. People are equal there. There is no titles. People don't call each other Mr. or boss. Everyone is treated equally, and I really love that. It's just I feel like sometimes when it's too much, people become without dreams. I don't know how to explain, but without ambitions, without something, in Latin America, when you have to struggle, you have to fight for things. So you always have a hope. You achieve one thing and you want to achieve another thing. But in Sweden, you don't need to do that because you have everything. You just have to open your mouth and the state is going to give you what you need. Okay.
And I think people generally, even in this country and probably your country, that an individual's ambitions can be affected by a wide variety of things. It isn't like in the poorest countries, everyone's super ambitious. That might not be the case either. They might be demoralized or might have other things about them. In this country where there's a great deal of opportunity for anyone that seeks it, there's a lot of people that seem to be pretty lazy, not really trying to do a whole lot in this country, and maybe living off of some of them living off of the system and the ways to not have to work that hard and still get by. That might just be a human thing. Some people might be more drawn to finding a focus in their life and passions, and some people are more drawn to just having an easy life and not really doing much. But that is an interesting thought. So if other countries were to move towards some of these socialist types of ideals to bring the people that are struggling up, there needs to be a great awareness of what that might do to people's ambitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Unless you have more to add on that, I'm curious then about some of the negative experiences, places that you've been where you thought this is maybe a good place to be, if that has happened.
A good place to be.
Well, no. Either way, but if there's so you thought Sweden was.
It was a good experience.
Good experience.
I learned a lot of things.
And then what about some of the bad experiences?
Oh, okay. So for me, it was really difficult to live in Turkey, in Istanbul, because I'm coming from a chauvinist culture, but Turkey was 10 times more than Latin America. It was really difficult for me to live in an environment. I was working in an exportation company in Istanbul, and I was the only professional woman and the only foreigner. So it was really difficult. I felt like I was always being treated as a second category citizen. My voice was never heard, even though my boss hired me because he needed me. But he didn't want me to do my job. He didn't want me to do the things I came to do in that company. So it was really hard to live in Istanbul as a woman alone. I think if I would have been married or if I would have a boyfriend, I would have been treated different. But because they knew that I was alone, a woman alone, it was really hard for me to live there.
Why do you think that? What evidence or examples can you share about why in particular, because you were a woman and because you didn't have a husband or boyfriend, that was especially hard?
People always ask you if you're married in Turkey when you are a foreigner. I have the impression it doesn't happen in all the Muslim countries, but Muslim countries are very conservative and they protect the people from their religion. But when you are a foreigner that is not Muslim, it's really hard because they have a lot of different perceptions about foreign women or Christian women or just European women, that they are atheist. They think that foreigners, they are very open-minded and very free and very easy, And, this is the way that they were raised. And they think that. So I had to struggle a lot to be respected.
And you say that, and I believe that is your perspective, but just to try to get a better understanding of your perspective, did you have similar experiences in other countries that made you think that it was common maybe in other parts of the world, or other parts of that area of the world?
Yeah, it happened to me in Egypt too. I was not able to go out after 7 o'clock by myself. I always have to go with a man, even my friends or the father of my family's friends. It was really difficult for me to be free to move. Also, when I was taking like Ubers or transportation, I was all the time being stared at. It was really hard for me. And I also felt the same thing. And many times when I explained that I was conservative, they were very shocked. They were like, "Really? But are you Muslim?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm just a conservative person. I'm not that free." And I was explaining them, and they were very shocked that I was a conservative person. So I understood that they, it's like sometimes they are brainwashed about what is happening outside their country.
Explain your perspective. So coming from Colombia and living in different parts of the world, if you call yourself conservative, what does that mean to you?
Oh, okay. So for me, that means, when I was using that word before, it means I'm not sleeping around, for example, or taking drugs, all kind of drugs. Yeah, this is what I meant. I feel like not everyone, because we cannot generalize, but at the beginning, people think that because you are coming from outside, you are easy, because they have a lot of rules in their religion. And for example, the friendship between women and men is not possible. In the Muslim world, people, they just get married. That's the first contact they have with the other gender, is when they get married. But before it, they don't have this kind of friendship. So,
and that's generalizing a little bit. It's probably not the same in every country.
Yeah,
but
it's not the same. It's totally not the same. There are many Muslim countries. There are many. The cultures are different, but it's something similar. The fact that the friendship between men and women is not very usual, like in the West.
So those would be the countries where you traveled or lived, that it would be most uncommon to see a man and a woman together unless they were married, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you've described a positive experience and a negative one. What anything else as we talk about all these different places you've lived that really comes to mind, some of the shocking learning experience by having lived in these places? Because I know from some of my travels, and I haven't traveled a ton, at least compared to you, not at all. It feels like not at all. Someone listening to us right now maybe has not traveled much at all. And I know that living place, or not, I guess I haven't lived in these places, just traveling to places, that you learn so much so quickly about how different people are and the way that they live, and really kind of makes my own thinking seem like, maybe I'm not thinking the right way, or at least my way of thinking, not everyone should think like me. What else has struck you about meeting new people, being in these places, and realizing the way that you see the world, although maybe it's right to you, maybe it other people can certainly have their other ways about it?
Yeah, I don't think there is a right or a wrong way. I respect every culture, the way they live, because it's important to understand the history of the place, the history of their ancestors, religion, and wars. So I don't think there is a good or a wrong way, but there were places that they were very shocking for me. I like to travel in a way that I go to a place and I just hung out with the locals. And if the locals are dressing up with their traditional dress, me too. Mm-hmm. I buy the locals' accessories and the clothes. That's the way I like to travel. So one of the places that I loved, even though it was really hard, was India, because I like places that are very different and very chaotic. India was really hard. I was traveling for 2 months by myself. Everyone told me not to do it because it was dangerous, but it was not dangerous, but it was a challenge. It's not normal. India is a very conservative country, more than any other Muslim country. And I was taking trains and buses. I was not with a tour. I was not with a man taking care of me. It was a challenge, but I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things. It was the first time for me to be in a country this chaotic.
Chaotic.
Yeah. But it was amazing.
And you said it wasn't dangerous. Is that you just took the mentality that I wasn't going to see these things and look at them as danger? Because I'd imagine there are bad things that happen everywhere, and I imagine that you could have possibly found yourself in harm's way. Is it somehow your approach to it that made it less dangerous for you?
Yeah, I think living in Muslim countries, it prepared me to be very direct. When I don't want something or when I need to stand by myself. So for me, India was a bit easier than other person that would have traveled for the first time in a very chauvinist and conservative country. So, the fact that I was behaving like a local helped me a lot because people were protecting me because they were like, okay, she's from Colombia, but she likes us. She's wearing our traditional clothes and she's covering the hair. Maybe if I would have come with, shorts, or that would have been even more difficult. But they were respecting me because of that. They were protecting me. Many people were protecting me. When I was traveling in the trains, everyone was asking me, are you traveling alone? And I was like, yeah. So people were like, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to the same city. Because it's not normal. Nobody travels alone as a woman in India. That's not possible.
So you really stood out, you think?
Yeah, and when I was feeling comfortable in a situation and if I had to raise my voice, I did it. Sometimes I pushed people. So yeah, but it was an amazing experience for me. India is so different to everything that I ever seen in my life.
And I think I know this answer based on our previous conversations, but why is it that you went to India for 2 months?
Well, I was going to Bangladesh after. I was going to work with a Peace Nobel Prize, and I wanted to stop in India. It was the faster way to get to Bangladesh. So I decided to stay there for 2 months. I have always wanted to travel in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is the region they call it like the most cultural region. It's very colorful and a lot of gastronomy. So I was very curious about this region. India is huge, but this region, it took me 2 months to visit this region, and it was amazing.
On a recent episode of my podcast with one of my friends, John, we talked about how Americans, especially, like most of us don't know to travel, and I guess if we do, not for a long periods of time. What is that as a Colombian traveling and going, for instance, for just, you said stop in India. You stop for 2 months. That's not stopping in India. You basically live there for 2 months. That's what it sounds like to me as an American. What is it like to people back home when they know some of the things that you've done? How is it common or very uncommon what you were doing?
It's very uncommon. But I'm used to, I like to travel by myself. I like to discover new places. Since I started this, I'm very curious and I like to understand new cultures. One of the things I want to know is why people behave the way they do. And there is a lot of elements that you need to take into account. And I was studying like religions and history and even food, even the language, For example, in Turkey, also in Latin America, people are very open to their private life. But in Turkey, there is a tense that allow you to gossip. and the name is mish, mish, mush, mush. So when you hear people using the suffix mish, mish, mush, mush, it means that they are gossiping. And when they teach you, because I was studying Turkish language, when they are teaching you about this specific, it's a past tense, kind of a past tense, they tell you, this means that you were not present, but this happened. So the language is allowing you to gossip, and then you understand why people, they're very curious about others people's life, because also you need to take into account, the language when you are trying to understand why people behave like this in certain country or a certain culture.
That's still, even as you describe it, I'm trying to understand it. It seems so odd because it seems like it was odd to you to experience it, how open it was about the gossiping.
Yeah, for me it was too much.
How many languages can you confidently communicate in at this point in your life?
Fluently, 5.
Five that you say you're fluent in. And how many others, if you showed up into one of these countries that spoke this, could you do okay and just get by okay?
Basic conversation in German, and I'm learning Arabic.
Okay. So 5 fluently, a couple others that you're learning enough that people would be very pleased to know that you at least can communicate in that language.
A little bit, yeah.
So you find that as you've been to these other countries that are some people, some of the locals, like excited when they know that you're from you're from Colombia, that you're speaking their language so well. Does that really endear them to you or you to them? Do you find? Is that important to people as you travel the world?
Yes. Even in the countries that I don't speak the language, for example, I'm going to tell you something very funny that happened to me. So I came to India and I never watched Bollywood. So I started watching Bollywood because these movies helped me to understand the culture. And there was one song I liked from one Bollywood song, from what Bollywood movie, and I memorized all the lyrics in Hindi because I really loved the song. And then when they were playing that song in parties, I was singing, so people were shocked. It's like, are you Indian? But you don't look Indian. Are you from the Himalayas? Because I look a bit Asian, because in Latin America, we have our native people are coming from the Mongolian steppes. People were confused if I was like, no, I'm from Colombia. And they were like, how come you know all the lyrics? I didn't know what they meant, but that opened a lot of doors for me in India. That's why I think that my experience was very positive. People there are so open. They invite you to their houses and they always want to get to know you. They are very kind.
And explain, and again, I know you and I have talked about this somewhat, but your ultimate purpose of why you're doing this. What's your purpose in life? What are you working towards right now? Explain that a little bit.
So I worked for 4 years in Colombia. I was working in social innovation. I am coming from a developing country where people don't have the same opportunities, and I believe that everyone should have the same opportunity. Everyone should have access to health and to education. So I was having a nonprofit organization in Bogota, and we were helping communities, extreme poor communities that they were living in the slums outside Bogota. We were helping them to improve their life. Many of them, they suffered the war because Colombia had a 60-year war with the guerrilla, with the FARC. So many of the people, they were coming to the slums from the countryside in Colombia, and they were living there with their families, but they didn't have money, so they were living in very bad conditions. They were very broken inside. So we do two types of work. The first one was teaching them about how to build their own self, about forgiveness, about leadership, about human rights, about political participation, because many of them, they are completely broken. Many of them, they lost their families, and they live the war. They live the cruel war that I have never seen because I live in the capital. And after that, we were teaching them like some models to develop their business idea, but we just promote ideas that they're innovative so they can help the community.
And that's why, kind of jumping to present day, that's why you're in the United States, at least in part.
Yes. I came here for a program about social innovation, and I am currently learning what is being done in Silicon Valley.
And then what would be your ultimate goal someday if things go the way you want them to go, which of course they never do exactly, it seems like, in life. But if things go pretty much as you would like, how will your next years transpire?
I want to work in an organization that help the people, the poorest people in Latin America. My heart is in Latin America because I was born there, because I own everything to that country. My family's there. So I want to work with the people that nobody believes in. From a big organization, I want to do something for Latin America.
For those people listening that don't know that much about Colombia, and there's probably, I'd imagine most people don't, and the only things they hear a little bit in the media from time to time. You were telling me that the country has been on the rise in a lot of ways. What present day Colombia, what would you want someone that's not from there and has never been there to know about it?
Colombia is a beautiful country. It's very diverse. Our geography, it's very diverse. We have the Amazon, we have the Caribbean part, we have the Andes Mountains. We have an amazing coffee that you should try. But it's also a country that is rising. We are the third biggest economy in Latin America. And the things are getting better. Like 20 years ago, it was a very unsafe country, but now it's not unsafe at all. It's easy to travel. People are very happy, very open-minded. And the music, it's amazing. The food is good. So I invite you to come.
Me or everybody?
Everybody and you especially.
Okay. And from afar then, it seems like some countries that Colombia neighbors or are also in South America, they're kind of going the other direction in recent years. So it's, I suppose, knowing that you grew up in a situation that wasn't that great in Colombia and seeing your country emerge as one that's improving, I'm sure that brings some emotions or feelings, knowing that maybe some of the neighboring countries aren't going the right way.
Yeah, right now, our brothers from Venezuela, they're having a difficult time. We are receiving a lot of Venezuelans in Colombia. We hope that the situation gets better.
Mm-hmm. But it must be a good thing to be able to help some people at least, which some time ago that probably wouldn't have been the case at all.
Yes.
Today on the Being Wrong segment, Kurt Carstensen here with Natalia Cortes. We're in San Francisco. There's people playing tennis behind us, athletic people, I'm sure. Here we are recording a podcast. Natalia, if we can get to our Being Wrong segment, do you have something that, as you look back on your life, that you've changed your mind about, that now you can say, I was wrong about how I did something or how I thought about something?
Yeah. I think there are some battles I don't have to fight. There are some things that I just have to allow that they are happening and just don't stress out.
Give me an example of how you learned this lesson.
Well, here in San Francisco, I borrowed someone money and this person hasn't paid and probably he's not going to pay me. And I just released that money and I forgive him.
That is a lesson that it was hard for me to learn too.
Yeah, so hard.
You get in this habit of everyone's always kind of paid you back, and then a few times people don't. Now I've gotten to the point where when I give someone money, no matter how much it is, I just kind of expect that it's not going to come back. So then I won't feel bad about it because I know allowing that to make me feel bad It's not worth it.
No.
So are there other types of battles that you don't fight as much anymore that maybe you would have?
Yeah, sometimes you stand up for yourself, trying to clean your name, but sometimes that's not worth. I don't have to show anything to anybody.
You know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some life lessons here on the Being Wrong segment. Natalia Cortes, thank you for joining me today here in moderately temperature San Francisco. You're from Colombia, so briefly, what would the weather be like right now if you were in Colombia?
It's actually the same. It's 11 degrees Celsius because we are in the mountains. Bogota is in the mountains, so it's quite cold.
So this is about the same for you. It's no extremes here. Where's the hottest place you've lived?
Turkey.
And the coldest place you've lived?
Sweden.
Okay. Natalia's lived all over the world, so if you haven't listened to the episode you're just watching here on video, make sure you check out the episode of People I Know Show with Natalia Cortes. Natalia, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see you.
Thanks for listening to People I Know Show. You can find the links in the show notes for the People I Know Show Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube accounts by leaving a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else. You are helping me help the show grow, so please do that if you can. Please also encourage one other person to listen to this episode or your favorite episode, or maybe just share your favorite episode on your favorite social media site. And as always, feel free to email your feedback directly to me, Kurt Karstensen, by using the email address peopleiknowshow@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.